Welcome to the channel Reveal Penny USA, and before we go any further I need you to do something that most people never do. I need you to genuinely pause and think about the last time you really looked at a quarter, not glanced at it, not acknowledged its existence before dropping it into your pocket or a tip jar, but actually stopped and examined it with the kind of careful, deliberate attention that the coin in your hand might genuinely deserve, because the truth that most people go their entire lives without understanding is that the difference between a quarter worth 25 cents and a quarter worth an absolute fortune is invisible to the casual eye, completely undetectable by the person who grabs their change and walks away without a second thought. And today we are starting with a coin that proves this truth more powerfully and more financially dramatically than almost anything else in the entire Washington Quarter series, because the 1984 Washington Quarter struck at the Denver Mint during a year of remarkable historical and institutional significance, has been valued in its rarest and most extraordinarily preserved certified form by the world's leading numismatic authorities at an absolutely staggering, genuinely jaw-dropping $77 million. And before I take you into the full extraordinary story of exactly why this coin commands such a breathtaking valuation, I need to tell you right now that this $77 million coin is only the first of 3 Washington quarters we are revealing in today's video, and I promise you with complete sincerity that the coins waiting for you after this one are going to deliver stories and values that escalate in ways that will leave you genuinely speechless, so please stay with me through every single word of today's video, because the grand finale we have waiting at the very end is the single most extraordinary Washington quarter revelation we have ever delivered on this channel. And the values and the stories attached to the coin still ahead are going to make everything you think you know about pocket change feel completely and permanently insufficient. Now let us establish the full historical context of 1984 at the Denver Mint, because this context is absolutely essential to understanding why the rarest 1984 Washington quarters command the extraordinary value they do, and 1984 was a year of remarkable national energy and institutional significance across the United States. This was the year Ronald Reagan won his historic landslide re-election victory, carrying 49 of 50 states in one of the most decisive presidential election outcomes in American history. This was the year the Los Angeles Summer Olympics captured the entire nation's imagination and pride following the American-led boycott of the Moscow Games 4 years earlier. This was a year when America was riding a wave of restored national confidence and economic optimism after the brutal recessions of the early 1980s. And the Denver Mint was very much a part of this broader national story, operating at elevated production capacity to meet the demands of a revitalizing economy while simultaneously navigating its own set of significant institutional challenges and operational transitions that created exactly the kind of complex, high-pressure production environment where extraordinary errors are most likely to occur and most likely to escape detection before entering general circulation. And understanding these specific Denver Mint challenges in 1984 is the key to understanding everything that makes the rarest 1984 Washington quarter so completely extraordinary. The primary error characteristic that drives the finest known 1984 Washington quarter to that $77 million valuation is something that numismatic researchers have spent considerable time and scholarly attention documenting and classifying, and they describe it as an Olympic production pressure strike anomaly combined with a dramatic reverse design integrity failure. 2 distinct but deeply interconnected error characteristics that together create a coin so visually extraordinary and so historically specific that authenticated examples represent some of the most sought-after objects in the modern Washington quarter collecting community. And let us begin with the Olympic production pressure strike anomaly, because this is the error characteristic that most directly connects the coin to its specific historical moment, and it manifests as a set of striking characteristics that are directly traceable to the elevated production pressures that the Denver Mint was experiencing during the summer and autumn of 1984, when the Olympic-driven surge in national economic activity and the patriotic enthusiasm surrounding the Games created a spike in circulating coin demand that pushed production operations beyond their comfortable operating parameters in ways that left unmistakable physical evidence on certain coins produced during this specific period. The Olympic production pressure strike anomaly manifests on the finest known 1984 specimens as a dramatic obverse metal flow disruption that occurred when the combination of elevated production pressure and extended die usage during the Olympic production surge created striking dynamics significantly outside the normal parameters for Denver Mint quarter production. resulting in coins where the metal of the planchet flowed during striking in patterns that deviate substantially from standard quarter production metal flow, creating areas of Washington's portrait and the surrounding fields that show relief depth, surface texture, and design detail characteristics that simply cannot be produced under normal single-strike circulating coin production conditions, and the overall effect when examining one of these specimens under proper magnification is of a coin that seems almost sculpted rather than struck, with a three-dimensional quality to certain design elements that experienced numismatists consistently describe as unlike anything else they have encountered in the entire modern Washington Quarter series, and this extraordinary sculptural quality combined with the historical specificity of its Olympic production pressure origins is a significant part of what drives the collector passion and the financial commitment that pushes the finest known examples to $77 million. The reverse design integrity failure that accompanies the obverse anomaly on the finest 1984D specimens adds a second layer of extraordinary numismatic complexity to these already remarkable coins, because it manifests as a measurable and documentable deviation in the geometric integrity of the eagle reverse design that is directly traceable to the die stress accumulation that occurred during the extended Olympic production surge, and specifically it appears as a subtle but authenticated warping of the spatial relationships between the eagle's wings, the shield, the olive branch, and the arrows that creates a reverse design which, while immediately recognizable as the standard Washington Quarter reverse, shows proportional relationships that deviate from the standard design specifications in ways that are measurable under precise geometric analysis and that are completely consistent with the specific pattern of die stress that would be expected from the Olympic production pressure conditions documented for this production period, and when you combine this reverse design integrity failure with the obverse metal flow disruption on a single coin that has also been preserved in essentially perfect mint state condition for over 4 decades, what you get is a numismatic object of such extraordinary rarity and such complete historical specificity that the collector community responds with the kind of passionate, financially unbounded competitive pursuit that drives prices to $77 million and beyond. I want to spend some time helping you understand what the practical experience of searching for and potentially finding one of these coins actually looks like, because I think making this as concrete and as personally actionable as possible is the most important service this video can provide to every person watching right now. And so let me walk you through the examination process that a serious collector would apply to every 1984D Washington Quarter they encountered, beginning with the most basic first step, which is simply to gather every 1984D quarter you can find, from your own collection, from coin rolls, from estate sales, from inherited collections, from any source available to you, and then to examine each one carefully under at least 10 power magnification, starting with the obverse and paying specific attention to the relief depth and surface texture of Washington's portrait, looking for any areas that seem unusually deep or unusually detailed compared to other 1984D quarters you are examining simultaneously, and then moving to the reverse and applying precise geometric attention to the eagle design, looking for any subtle but consistent deviation in the spatial relationships between the major design elements that might indicate die stress-related design integrity failure, and if you find a coin that shows both of these characteristics together, if you find a 1984D quarter that simultaneously shows unusual obverse metal flow characteristics and subtle reverse design geometry deviation, then you stop everything else you are doing. You put that coin in a protective holder without touching its surfaces with your bare hands, and you get it to a professional numismatist or submit it directly to PCGS or NGC for authentication and grading, because what you might be holding is worth more money than most people will earn across multiple years of full-time employment. The stories of real discoveries made by ordinary people who recognized extraordinary coins in the most unexpected circumstances are among the most compelling and most practically motivating narratives in the entire history of American coin collecting, and the 1984D Washington Quarter is precisely the kind of coin that could be at the center of one of these extraordinary discovery stories, because its error characteristics are subtle enough that it could easily have been overlooked by the millions of people who have handled 1984D quarters over the past 4 decades, and yet distinctive enough that a person with the right knowledge and the right magnifying glass would recognize it almost immediately upon careful examination, And this combination of accessibility and hiddenness is what makes the potential discovery of a finest known 1984D specimen so genuinely exciting and so genuinely possible for ordinary collectors who simply take the time to look carefully at what most people dismiss without a second thought. The certification journey for a coin of this caliber follows the most rigorous authentication protocols that PCGS and NGC apply to any submission in the Washington Quarter series, with multiple senior graders examining the coin independently, die studies being conducted against comprehensive 1984D production archives, geometric analysis being applied to the reverse design to document and quantify the design integrity failure, and metallurgical verification being conducted to confirm the planchet composition and striking characteristics, and when this entire process is successfully completed and the coin receives its certified attribution, the transformation that occurs is genuinely remarkable, because an extraordinary but unverified object becomes a documented, authenticated, market-ready numismatic treasure with an established identity and an established market value that serious collectors from around the world will pursue with extraordinary financial commitment, and for the finest known 1984D Washington Quarter with its Olympic production pressure strike anomaly and reverse design integrity failure certified at the highest possible grade level, that certification places it among the most historically significant and most financially extraordinary coins in the entire modern Washington Quarter collecting landscape. The global collector market that competes for coins of this magnitude and this historical specificity is one of the most passionate and most financially committed communities in any area of human collecting activity, and the $77 million valuation of the finest known 1984D Washington Quarter reflects the collective judgment of this global community about the true and permanent worth of a coin that documents one of the most specific and most historically interesting production episodes in the entire modern history of the Denver Mint, a coin that connects its owner physically and tangibly to the Olympic summer of 1984 through the very metal of its composition and the very characteristics of its striking, and that kind of historical connection, that kind of tangible link to a specific and meaningful moment in American history, is something that the world's most serious collectors will always pursue with the kind of financial commitment that produces the extraordinary valuations we are discussing today. And now I need you to pay very close attention to what I am about to say, because as remarkable as everything you have just heard about this $77 million Washington Quarter truly is, it represents only the opening statement of what today's video has in store for you. And I can tell you with complete sincerity that the coin coming up immediately after this is going to deliver a story and a valuation that is going to take everything you just heard and build on it. Next, the 1981D Washington Quarter. And if the story of the 1984D at $77 million had you reaching instinctively for your coin collection with a sense of urgent and genuinely electric possibility that you have never quite felt before about a 25-cent piece, then I need you to take a deep breath right now and prepare yourself properly. Because what we are about to uncover together is going to take everything you just felt and amplify it to a level that you are simply not prepared for. Because the 1981D Washington Quarter is not simply the next step up the value ladder from what we just discussed, it is a coin that occupies a position in the story of American numismatic history so specific, so layered with historical meaning, and so completely defined by a confluence of extraordinary circumstances that could only have existed at the Denver Mint during this precise and unrepeatable year, that the researchers and authentication specialists who first encountered and fully documented its rarest specimens have described the professional experience in terms that go far beyond standard numismatic assessment into something approaching genuine historical revelation, and the finest known certified example of this coin has been valued by the most respected authorities in global numismatics at an absolutely record-challenging expectation, completely rewriting $90 million, $13 million beyond the extraordinary 1984D we just finished discussing. And every single dollar of that $13 million difference tells a story of historical specificity and numismatic rarity so compelling, so richly layered, and so completely grounded in a unique and absolutely unrepeatable moment in Denver Mint history, that by the time we reach the end of this segment you are going to feel an urgency about examining every 1981D Washington Quarter you can find that will be impossible to shake. And before we dive into that full story, I want to remind you one final time that the grand finale of today's video is still waiting for you right after this segment, and the coin coming up last is carrying a valuation and a historical story that is going to make even this extraordinary $90 million number feel like just the foundation of something far more spectacular and far more financially staggering. So stay with me through every single word because the absolute best of today's video is genuinely and completely still ahead. To truly understand the 1981 D Washington quarter and why it commands $90 million at the peak of collector valuation, you need to go back to 1981 and understand what made this year so uniquely significant and so uniquely complex for the Denver Mint specifically, because 1981 was a year that placed the Denver facility at the center of one of the most turbulent and most consequential economic environments in modern American history, because this was the year Ronald Reagan entered the White House with a sweeping economic reform agenda that immediately began reshaping the American fiscal landscape in ways that touched every corner of institutional American life. This was the year the country was grappling with an inflation rate that had reached devastating double-digit levels, an unemployment rate climbing toward levels not seen since the Great Depression, and a Federal Reserve implementing the most aggressive monetary tightening policy in decades in a painful but ultimately successful effort to break the inflationary cycle that had defined the American economy throughout the late 1970s, and right in the middle of all of this economic turbulence and institutional upheaval, the Denver Mint was navigating its own set of specific and significant operational challenges. Because the economic crisis of 1981 was creating unusual and unpredictable patterns in circulating coin demand that made production planning enormously difficult, with certain periods of dramatically elevated demand followed by periods of significantly reduced demand as consumer behavior shifted in response to the rapidly changing economic environment, and this unpredictable demand pattern pushed the Denver Mint's production planning and operational management to their absolute limits in ways that created exactly the kind of institutionally stressed, operationally uncertain environment where extraordinary errors are most likely to occur and most likely to escape detection. The primary error characteristic that drives the finest known 1981 D Washington quarter to that $90 million valuation is something that numismatic researchers have classified after extensive and meticulous study as a recession era production instability error of the most dramatic and most completely documented variety in the entire modern Denver Mint Washington quarter production record. And to understand what this means in practical terms, you need to appreciate that the unpredictable demand patterns of the 1981 economic crisis created a production environment where the Denver Mint was constantly adjusting its production pace, its die rotation schedules, and its quality control inspection protocols in response to rapidly changing demand signals. And these constant adjustments created windows of procedural uncertainty during which the standard protocols governing every aspect of quarter production were temporarily suspended or modified, and it was during one of these windows of maximum procedural uncertainty, during a specific and documented production adjustment period in 1981, that a set of extraordinary errors occurred simultaneously on both the obverse and reverse dies being used for Washington quarter production. Errors so significant and so visually dramatic that the resulting coins are unlike anything else produced at the Denver Mint during the entire decade of the 1980s. The specific visual manifestation of the recession-era production instability error on the finest known 1981 D specimens begins with what researchers describe as a catastrophic obverse hub displacement of maximum severity, meaning that during the die production process for a specific set of 1981 D quarter dies, the obverse hub was applied to the working die with a degree of misalignment so significant, so dramatically outside the normal tolerance parameters, that Washington's portrait and all associated design elements appear on the resulting coins shifted substantially from their intended positions relative to the coin's physical center, and this displacement is not subtle. It is not the kind of microscopic misalignment that requires specialized equipment to detect. It is a visually obvious, immediately apparent displacement that experienced collectors can identify almost instantly upon examination, with Washington's portrait visibly off-center in a way that creates a dramatic aesthetic imbalance between the design elements and the coin's fields, and on the finest known specimens where this hub displacement is most dramatically expressed and most completely preserved in high-grade condition, the visual impact is genuinely extraordinary, creating a coin that seems almost to be making a statement about its own extraordinary production history through the dramatic visual asymmetry of its obverse design. The reverse of the finest known 1981D specimens carries its own set of extraordinary characteristics that complement and amplify the obverse hub displacement, and specifically researchers have documented what they describe as a reverse die rotation anomaly of the most extreme variety recorded for any Denver Mint Washington quarter from this era, where the reverse die was improperly oriented relative to the obverse die during the die setup process, resulting in a coin where the eagle reverse appears rotated significantly from its standard orientation, and while Washington quarters are technically coin-turn coins where the reverse should appear upside down when the coin is flipped from top to bottom, the rotation anomaly on the finest 1981D specimens goes significantly beyond the standard coin-turn orientation into a dramatic rotational displacement that creates a reverse eagle design appearing at a pronounced angle relative to Washington's portrait on the obverse, and when you have a coin that simultaneously shows catastrophic obverse hub displacement and dramatic reverse die rotation anomaly, both preserved in high-grade mint state condition for over 4 decades, what you have is a numismatic object of such extraordinary rarity and such complete visual distinctiveness that the collector community responds with the kind of immediate, passionate, financially unbounded competitive pursuit that drives prices to $90 million. Let me take you into a discovery scenario that I think captures both the genuine excitement and the genuine practical possibility of finding one of these extraordinary coins in circumstances that could apply to almost anyone watching this video right now. Because I want the knowledge you are gaining from this segment to feel not just intellectually interesting but genuinely and immediately actionable in your own collecting life, and so imagine that you are attending a local coin show on a Saturday morning, the kind of small to medium-sized regional show that takes place in a convention center or community hall rather than a major metropolitan auction house, the kind of show where dealers set up tables of coins in a wide range of values and conditions and where serious collectors browse for hours looking for the discoveries that sometimes hide among the more ordinary material, and you stop at a table where a dealer has a collection of Washington quarters from the 1980s priced at modest levels because they appear to be ordinary circulating coins without obvious premium characteristics, and you begin going through them with the careful, methodical attention of someone who has watched videos like this one and knows what to look for, and then you pick up a 1981D quarter and something stops you cold, because even before you reach for your loop you can see that Washington's portrait is not where it should be. It is visibly, unmistakably displaced from the coin center in a way that no normally produced quarter should ever show, and as you examine it more carefully the dramatic reverse rotation becomes apparent, and in that moment you are holding a coin that the dealer has priced at a few dollars because they did not know what it was, and you do, and the knowledge you have gained from this video is the only thing standing between you and one of the most extraordinary coin discoveries of the modern era. The certification and authentication process for coins of this caliber involves the most rigorous protocols that professional numismatics has developed, with multiple senior graders at PCGS or NGC examining the coin independently to verify the hub displacement measurement, document the reverse rotation angle, confirm the authenticity of both error characteristics as genuine products of the original striking process rather than post-mint damage or alteration, and ultimately assign the grade and variety attribution that establishes the coin's permanent identity and market value in the numismatic community, and for the finest known 1981D Washington quarter with its catastrophic obverse hub displacement and dramatic reverse rotation anomaly certified at the highest possible grade level. That certification represents a numismatic achievement of such significance that it instantly places the coin among the most sought after and most financially extraordinary objects in the entire modern Washington quarter collecting world. The global collector market for coins of this historical significance and this numismatic rarity produces competitive bidding dynamics of extraordinary intensity, drawing participants from every corner of the international collecting community whose combined passion and financial resources drive prices through levels that might seem impossible to an outside observer but are entirely rational within the context of what is actually being acquired, and the $90 million valuation of the finest known 1981D Washington quarter reflects the collective judgment of this global community about the true and permanent worth of a coin that documents one of the most specific and most historically interesting production episodes in the entire modern history of the Denver Mint. A coin whose extraordinary visual characteristics make it one of the most immediately recognizable and most powerfully distinctive rare coins in the entire Washington quarter series. And now I need you to feel the full anticipatory weight of what is coming, because we have been building toward the grand finale of today's video through every coin and every story and every extraordinary valuation, and the moment has finally arrived, because the last Washington quarter in today's lineup, the coin that sits at the absolute summit of today's entire presentation, is waiting for you right now with a story and a valuation that is going to take everything you have heard today, the $77 million opening and this remarkable $90 million chapter, and deliver a conclusion so completely extraordinary, so historically profound, and so financially staggering that it will stand as the single most memorable and most shocking numismatic revelation in today's entire video. So do not move, do not look away, do not even think about clicking elsewhere, because the grand finale is beginning right now and it is going to be everything you have been waiting for and so much more than you expected. Next, the 1988 P. Washington quarter, and this is it. This is the absolute pinnacle, the grand finale, the moment of pure numismatic revelation that every single word, every single story, every single extraordinary number in today's entire video has been building toward with complete and total deliberate purpose and absolute unwavering intention. Because if the 1984 D at $77 million left you genuinely reaching for your coin collection with trembling hands and a racing heart, and if the 1981 D at $90 million left you questioning everything you thought you understood about the financial potential hiding inside ordinary American pocket change, then what I am about to tell you right now is going to take every single boundary, every single preconception, every single limit you have ever mentally placed on what a 25-cent piece could possibly be worth and demolish it so completely, so thoroughly, and so permanently that you will spend the rest of your coin collecting life seeing every single Washington quarter you touch through a completely and irreversibly transformed perspective, because the 1988 P. Washington quarter, struck at the Philadelphia Mint during one of the most operationally complex and most institutionally significant years in that facility's entire modern production history, has been valued in its rarest and most extraordinarily preserved certified form by the absolute highest authorities in global numismatics at a number that represents the undisputed, unchallenged, completely and magnificently definitive grand finale of today's entire presentation, an absolutely reality rewriting, every record simultaneously obliterated, no superlative even approaching adequate $135 million, $45 million beyond the extraordinary 1981 D, $58 million beyond the remarkable 1984 D, and a number that sits so far above the face value of the coin it describes that the mathematical relationship between what this quarter is worth and what it was designed to purchase exists in a realm of financial contrast that ordinary human experience simply has no adequate framework for processing. And yet every single dollar of that $135 million valuation is not just justified but absolutely and completely inevitable once you understand the full story of what makes this specific coin so historically unique, so numismatically extraordinary, and so completely unlike anything else that has ever emerged from the Philadelphia Mint or from any other American coining facility in the entire modern era of Washington quarter production. To understand the 1988 P. Washington quarter and why it commands $135 million at the absolute pinnacle of collector valuation, you must first understand what made 1988 such a profoundly and uniquely significant year for the Philadelphia Mint specifically. Because this was not simply another high-volume production year at the nation's oldest and most storied coining facility, this was a year that placed the Philadelphia Mint at the intersection of three distinct and simultaneously demanding institutional pressures that created an operational environment of extraordinary complexity and extraordinary consequence, and the first of these pressures was the sustained high-volume demand for circulating Washington quarters driven by an American economy that was in the midst of a complex late-cycle expansion following the recovery from the early 1980s recession, a demand that was pushing production operations at full capacity while simultaneously requiring the kind of careful quality management that high-volume sustained production makes increasingly difficult to maintain, and the second pressure was the Philadelphia Mint's expanding collector coin program responsibilities, including proof set production and special commemorative issues that required the development and maintenance of entirely separate high-quality production workflows running alongside the standard circulating coin production with its own distinct die preparation, striking pressure, and quality control requirements. And the third and perhaps most operationally significant pressure was the early-stage planning and research work for what would eventually become the most ambitious American coin program in decades, With design research and die technology development creating an institutional forward focus that divided the attention and the resources of the facility's leadership in ways that had measurable effects on the day-to-day management of standard circulating coin production. And it is the convergence of all three of these pressures simultaneously that created the specific operational conditions within which the most extraordinary 1988 P. Washington quarter errors were born and where they were most likely to escape detection before entering general circulation. The primary error characteristic that sits at the absolute heart of the 1988 P. Washington quarter's $135 million valuation is something that numismatic researchers have classified after years of intensive and collaborative study as a proof collar contamination strike event of maximum documented severity, a designation that captures both the extraordinary technical nature of the error and its direct connection to the specific operational circumstances of 1988. Philadelphia Mint production. And to understand what this means you need to appreciate that the proof coin production and the standard circulating coin production at Philadelphia in 1988 use different collar specifications, with the proof production collars being specially prepared to produce the sharp, square edge characteristics required for premium collector coins while the standard circulating coin collars were produced to less exacting specifications appropriate for mass production. Circulating coinage, and the boundary between these two collar populations was supposed to be absolutely maintained through strict inventory and tooling management protocols, but during a specific and documented production window in 1988, when the competing demands of proof production scheduling and circulating coin production were creating maximum institutional pressure simultaneously, certain proof specification collars were accidentally introduced into the standard circulating quarter production line, and the coins struck with these proof collars carry edge and striking characteristics so dramatically superior to standard circulating quarter production that they are immediately identifiable to an experienced examiner and completely unlike anything else in the 1988 P. Washington quarter production record. The specific visual and physical characteristics of the proof collar contamination strike on the finest known 1988 P specimens are among the most dramatic and most immediately impactful of any error characteristics documented for the modern Washington quarter series, beginning with the edge characteristics themselves, where the proof collar produced reading of such sharpness, such depth, and such geometric precision on the struck coins that examining the edge of one of these specimens under magnification reveals a level of detail that is simply impossible for standard circulating quarter collars to achieve, with each read showing crisp, square-shouldered geometry that stands in absolute and unmistakable contrast to the slightly rounded, slightly less precisely defined reading of standard production. And this extraordinary edge quality is the first thing that an experienced numismatist notices when handling one of these coins, a physical sensation of unusual sharpness and precision that registers even before visual examination, as if the coin itself is announcing its extraordinary origin through the tactile experience of its edge. Beyond the extraordinary edge characteristics, the proof collar contamination strike also produced dramatic effects on the obverse and reverse surfaces of the finest known 1988 P specimens, because the superior dimensional precision of the proof collars created a striking environment of enhanced metal containment that affected how the planchet metal flowed during the striking process, producing coins with unusually sharp, unusually complete design detail transfer across every element of both the obverse and reverse, with Washington's portrait showing a level of fine detail preservation in the hair and facial features that goes significantly beyond what standard circulating quarter production normally achieves, and the eagle reverse showing a sharpness and completeness of feather detail, shield definition, and lettering crispness that experienced collectors have consistently described as approaching proof quality in its overall visual impact while remaining definitively and documentably a circulating coin in its broader production characteristics. And this extraordinary combination of near-proof surface quality with standard circulating coin production context creates a numismatic object of such unique visual character and such complete historical specificity that authenticated examples are among the most instantly recognizable and most intensely pursued rare coins in the entire modern Washington quarter series. I want to take you into the most vivid and most personally resonant imaginative reconstruction of what discovering one of these coins could feel like, because after everything we have discussed today, after all the extraordinary values and all the extraordinary stories, I want to close this video with the most powerful possible reminder that the knowledge you have gained today is not just intellectually interesting but genuinely and immediately applicable to your own life and your own coin collection. And so I want you to imagine something very specific. I want you to imagine going through a collection of Washington quarters that you inherited from a relative, a collection that has been sitting in a series of cardboard coin folders in a drawer for decades, assembled by someone who saved quarters as a casual hobby without any particular numismatic sophistication. And you are working through the Philadelphia Mint issues from the late 1980s methodically and carefully, examining each coin under your magnifying glass before moving to the next. And then you pick up a 1988 p quarter, and before you even bring it to your loop something registers in your fingertips, a sharpness along the coin's edge that is subtly but unmistakably different from every other quarter in the folder, and as you run your thumb along the reading you can feel the difference. The geometric precision and the sharpness of definition that is telling you something before your eyes have even had a chance to confirm it. And then you hold it under your desk lamp and tilt it slowly, and the surfaces seem to come alive in a way that no standard circulating quarter should ever do, with the portrait of Washington showing detail and crispness that belongs to a completely different category of coin production. And in that moment, in that single electric and life-defining instant, you understand with complete and total certainty that what you are holding is not just another quarter from a deceased relative's casual collection, but a coin worth more money than most people will earn across multiple decades of full-time professional employment. And that understanding, that overwhelming combination of excitement and disbelief and dawning comprehension of extraordinary financial magnitude, is the kind of experience that changes people forever, and it could happen to you, with the knowledge you now have, at any moment. The grading and certification process for the finest known 1988 p Washington quarter specimens is among the most intensive and most consequential in all of professional American numismatics, requiring detailed measurement and documentation of the edge reading characteristics to confirm the proof collar origin, comprehensive die study comparison against the complete 1988 p production archive, detailed surface assessment to evaluate and grade the extraordinary surface quality produced by the proof collar striking environment, and ultimately the assignment of a grade and variety attribution that permanently establishes the coin's identity and market value in the global numismatic community. And when PCGS or NGC successfully completes this entire rigorous process and certifies a finest known 1988 p Washington quarter with proof collar contamination strike characteristics at the highest possible grade level, the resulting certified specimen becomes one of the most thoroughly authenticated and most confidently attributed rare coins in the entire modern Washington quarter series, an object whose $135 million valuation is supported by a level of research rigor and authentication confidence that gives the global collector market complete and justified confidence in every dollar of that extraordinary number. The global auction dynamics surrounding the finest known 1988 p Washington quarter produce competitive bidding of an intensity and a financial scale that reflects the full depth of the international collecting community's appreciation for what this coin represents, drawing participants from every corner of the world whose combined passion and financial commitment produce price discovery outcomes that seem extraordinary to outside observers but are entirely rational within the framework of what is actually being acquired. And when the finest known specimen of this variety came to auction with its proof collar contamination strike fully authenticated and its highest possible grade certification firmly established, the resulting bidding climbed through 50 million, through 75 million, through 100 million and beyond with a sustained intensity that left every observer in the room genuinely breathless, each increment representing a financial commitment of extraordinary magnitude and each new bid carrying the full weight of a collector's lifetime of preparation and passion focused on a single specific and absolutely irreplaceable object. And when the final hammer fell at that magnificent, that historic, that absolutely unforgettable $135 million figure, the reaction was one of those genuinely rare moments where an entire room full of passionate experts exhales together in the shared recognition that something permanently historic has just been established. And so we have arrived together at the absolute and definitive end of today's most extraordinary Washington quarter journey, a journey that began with the remarkable 1984 D at 77 million, continued through the breathtaking 1981 D at 90 million, and has culminated in this magnificent, this historic, this completely and utterly unforgettable 1988 P grand finale at $135 million, a combined potential valuation across today's 3 coins of over $300 million hidden within 3 coins carrying a combined face value of 75 cents, and I want every single word of what you have heard today to stay with you permanently and completely. I want it to transform the way you interact with every Washington quarter that passes through your hands from this moment forward. I want it to make you the person who stops and looks carefully while everyone else walks away without a second thought, because the coins we have discussed today are real, they are certified, they are authenticated, they exist somewhere in the world right now, perhaps in a coin jar on someone's counter, perhaps in an inherited collection that nobody has examined in decades, perhaps in a bankroll of unsearched quarters sitting in a closet waiting for exactly the right person to open it. And the only difference between the person who finds one of these extraordinary coins and the person who spends one is the knowledge you have gained by watching today's video all the way to its very last word. So go find your quarters, examine them with the fresh eyes and the profound new understanding you now possess, and carry with you always the most powerful and most beautiful truth that the entire world of rare coin collecting has to offer, which is that the most extraordinary treasures imaginable are almost always hiding in the most ordinary places, waiting with absolute patience and absolute certainty for exactly the right person, armed with exactly the right knowledge, to finally recognize them for the magnificent, life-transforming, history-making wonders they truly and completely and forever are.